And the question I want to ask you is, the target audience of Author Level Up is intermediate authors. So these are people who they've published a few books already. They've been around the block a few times. They understand the marketing basics. They understand, the need to, as you've mentioned, just keep learning and learn how to do things themselves. What would your number one piece of advice be to those people?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to, and sometimes people think, business is such a dirty word when it comes to book writing, but it's important to take your book writing seriously and consider it a business. Like, for nonfiction, I think that's easier to do, perhaps than fiction, because fiction is oftentimes very much about the art and the craft of it, whereas nonfiction can sometimes be more just about like the information and the value of that. But I think if you take your approach seriously and be willing to diversify your skills in terms of trying different things, a lot of the stuff we talked about today can be applied to fiction authors too. So you just have to take a slightly different mindset approach to it. But I mean,
Exactly.
being willing to do more than just write a book out and put it on the store and move on. Being willing to write numerous books, try different things and experiment. I think it's super important to experiment. And this is sort of like mashup of all of these different things. I don't really have a number one tip because I'm trying to do so many things all the time. And I think it is super valuable to be willing to fail, and learn from each experiment, each experience. So, think of your books as a business and try to like put everything together as a package where, you're not just writing a book on puppy farming or a book on computer synergy. I'm just making up random things and mashing them together, but like try to think of things cohesively. So writing a series of books on a related topic, trying to think about how your audiences might converge, and instead of splintering into all these different branches, like how can you write on a topic or topics that will appeal to a similar group of people so you can continue to build on your momentum with each project, instead of having to start fresh and find a new audience. So that's important. And like I mentioned before, experimenting and being willing to kind of fail forward is really key. Sometimes your book's not going to sell and there's nothing you can do about it other than just write the next book and try something else. But I think if you take the time to really pay attention to what you do and track what your actions are and put some thought into kind of like, all right, here's the steps I'm taking, and then analyzing what the result is, and then seeing what you can get from that and apply it. So if you fail miserably and something doesn't work out, see what you can learn from that and don't do the exact same thing next time. Try something different. And it is, when you're doing shorter projects, when you're taking sort of like the minimum viable product model of like creating a short course or creating a basic short book and then finding ways to add value to that, there's less, doesn't have to be scary. Like you can have more freedom to kind of pivot and try things without having to dive into it 400% and risk, failing utterly. So if you're writing like a 100,000 word book, if that doesn't sell, you spend a lot of time putting that together. Whereas, if you write a short book that took you a couple months to write and edit and put out, you really have that benefit of like, if it doesn't click, you can fine tune it, you can adjust it, you can do another cover, you can try things, because if you're self-publishing, you have that flexibility to kind of apply different things and learn from them. And I spend a lot of time experimenting, and not all of my experiments work, but sometimes the things I think are going to work the least will often work the best. And you never know until you try. So wrapping all this sort of into one sort of, it's not really a one. I apologize. That's not like a one tip. That's sort of just like do all these
I know
things.
it's a tough question. It's okay.
But I think it's just important to, be willing to try things and be flexible and take yourself seriously, and, have some faith in yourself too. Like maybe, you're on a path of growing and you're trying to, level up and do things. And, it takes time to do that. So the longer you put into it, and you just sometimes just through perseverance, like trying to push forward even if you're struggling. Like I think there's points where I almost gave up writing books because I didn't feel like I was getting the traction I needed to. And then I wrote, and then I was like, well, let me just write short Kindle books and see what happens. And it worked out where I was like, oh, okay, like I found the niche. I found like my angle that works.